Hi, welcome to a guide to business operations for freelancers. I'm Rachel Thompson with Daring Studios, and I'm going to be talking about business operations today, which actually I really like talking about, which is why I'm here. So my goal is to help you make strategic decisions about your freelancing writer-author business. I'm making some assumptions here. I'm making that you're a freelancer, or that you would like to be one, and that you're probably going to be focusing on a writing and or author business. So it's kind of how I've framed the conversation, some of the questions and things like that. The agenda today, we're going to talk about the 5 jobs of the CEO, business model and structure. What are those? What decisions might you need to make about those for yourself? Brand and digital presence, marketing and outreach, and then some decisions you might need to make as the CEO of your business. I'm Rachel Thompson. I'm a Certified Professional Facilitator, business and brand strategy consultant. I host workshops and retreats. I'm also a copywriter and website builder. I'm an editor, and I also am a dog mom. He's a cute little guy named Devin. I have been self-employed since 2016 when I started Daring Studios, and I really like it. I also like working both in the business, like doing the work, the craft work in the business, the client work, and also on the business, running the business. So I want to share my 10 years plus of knowledge of things that I've been doing to help you start your business, or maybe streamline it or make it a little bit more supportive. One thing I really like to start with is the best tool is the one you use. There are a lot of tools out there. There's a lot of options. It's easy to get lost in tool comparison, thinking about all the software as a service, that there's tons of options as you're trying to build a business. You probably don't need a lot of those, especially if you're a company of one, so there's just one of you, and you are trying to run your own thing. You can do it pretty lean. If you're considering tools, one thing I want you to think about is, what is the need you have, and how might this tool actually solve it? So a lot of the tools out there have tons of bells and whistles and features, and they might be built for different business models, different needs, or they might just be too hard to use or overwhelming to use, or you might just not use it. So really think about what is a tool that you will actually use and that is actually supportive and is actually meeting the need you have. I really like to frame that as an option because I think I also have done that. There's a lot out there and it can be overwhelming. So really think about that. What is the best tool is the one you use. All right, so the work. There's really 2 hats that you're probably going to be wearing as an author business. The writer and author, so you're going to be working in the business, in the craft to create the products. In this case, I'm going to say books. And then the CEO hat is working on the business to sell said books. So writing books, selling, and marketing books. Those are probably the 2 different types of work you're going to do. And I'm going to talk about the jobs of the CEO, which is the second one. There's tons of resources out there about the writing of the books. But the job of the CEO is to publish and sell the books. So the first thing is setting the vision and strategy for your business. And also asking the question, do you want to treat this like a business? Or do you just want it to be a hobby? So what are you creating? What are you creating as in the books you're writing? But also, what are you creating in the business? How do you want the business to support you being an author? And also, how do you want it to integrate it into your life? And what is it all for? I'm a huge reader. So usually books are to entertain readers. As a writer, it might be to express your creativity. You also might want some sort of financial return. And there's a lot of different things, levels there that we can talk about. But think about what is it that you want in your business? What are you looking to do here? The second job of the CEO is sourcing and allocating resources to help you pursue your strategy. And your strategy was, what is your vision and strategy that we just talked about? So some resources you're going to think about is time, attention, and then financial investments. And then initially, there's a couple different sources for financial investments. Bootstrapping is basically paying out of pocket. You're funding it just from your life, your savings. Subsidizing it by other work, a full-time job, a part-time job, other services you might be offering. The book advance, when you work with a publisher, they pay you money, you write the book. They make money back and then they start paying you. There's a whole bunch out there about the book advances, which is an option, but it's not the only option. What is your ongoing goal? Is it to just publish your work, just to get the book out of your head onto a piece of paper and maybe a couple copies you can share with your friends and family? Then it might just be a hobby and you don't need to do all the work of being a CEO. Are you wanting to create enough revenue to cover your publishing expenses? Basically breaking even so you're not losing money, but you can also have a creative hobby, doing your creative work and making some money or a bit of money, maybe subsidizing your day job or, changing things up in that regard. Or do you want to fund your life as a working author or writer? That would require a different level of effort on the CEO side to get to that level of revenue. But just think about where do you fall in these things? The third job of a CEO is to build the support to execute the work. So executing both hats of the work, so executing the writing of the work with, time and attention, writing groups, communities, craft classes, things like that, but also building support around executing the CEO side of the work. So building a business container, like an LLC or a brand or like the business structure and model, which we'll talk about in a second. Maybe hiring help. Hiring help could be people. It could be hiring an editor, hiring someone to design the cover, book layout, all those things. It could be using tools or processes, especially on the business side, to help you do that. Learning and skill development. Again, learning the business skills, learning the writing skills, marketing skills. There's a lot of things you can do there. And then building marketing assets. And this might be like a newsletter and a website and some of those relationships to really market the work. That's also one of the jobs of the CEO. Another job of the CEO is to communicate and share. Internally, because no one else cares as much as you do about your work. And this might be sharing with your family or the people around you that you are dedicating time and energy and maybe some resources, some money to writing and publishing your work. And then externally, like really pushing out into the world, maybe hiring support and communicating your vision as a CEO to those people, or seeking out the tools that will be the best tools that will actually support you. And then leaning into the discovery mechanisms. So where will readers search to find your book? And how might you set yourself up to be in those places? And then broadcasting marketing, which is you pushing out and saying, hey, I wrote a book. It's kind of the directionality is the difference there. Broadcasting is kind of out from you, and discovery is reader towards you, or towards your book, if you think about that. And then the final job of the CEO is to ship the work, to write and publish the book so the readers can actually read it. One line, quite a lot of work. But yeah, that's the 5 jobs of the CEO. So some questions to think about, some decisions you might need to make. Is this a hobby or a business? If you want to just write some books, put it out there, make a bit of money, maybe it's just a hobby. Maybe you just are a hobby writer. That's totally fine. Or is it a business? Like, do you want to treat it like a business and really make some sort of consistent revenue, maybe build up be a working author, things like that? What are your goals? Again, we talked about those, like what level you want to be at. Why are you doing this? What is it all for? And then if it is a business and you have goals of really building this as a business, what are the CEO jobs that you need to do to support your goals? There's a lot out there for writing, so that ship it, writing and publishing. But again, this one is really focused on kind of those top four jobs as CEO of creating a business container, having a vision and strategy, communicating it out, and really allocating resources. All right. Lots to think about so far. So let's talk about business model and structure. I framed this, I narrated, there's a ton out there about business model and structure, but I framed it for what I assume that you might need. And that some of the assumptions I made is that you're probably a company of one, so there's just one person. You're not really having partners, you're not really having hiring employees. You can hire contractors, but that's different. And I also assumed that you're wanting to build an author or writing business. So I made some of those assumptions, and that's how I kind of framed this conversation. What is a business model? It's how you, the business, makes money. Pretty simple. Here's how it might look like for you. So what is your business model? One option might be a service-based writer delivering one-on-one work. Maybe someone hires you as a ghostwriter. You're working with this person directly, so it's one person to one person. You're writing them, they're paying you. You're a one-on-one writer. In that case, you don't need you'll have different strategies for like marketing and like finding clients and things like that. Another option would be a creator-based author delivering products to many customers. So in this case, the book is the product, the reader is the end customer, and you also have to consider a lot of other stakeholders like publishers, editors, bookstores, there's a bunch of people there. And in this case, you write the book once, and it can be bought as many times as possible. And then you're really going for scale here. So one-on-one writing is usually, again, one-to-one, one client, one contract, one project, delivering it, and you're done. The creator-based business model is much broader. You need a larger audience in order to make more money. So it's just, they're different models, and doing both at the same time is doing two different business models. It can be under the same business entity, which we'll talk about in a second, but it is two different business models, which require different marketing strategies and things like that. So just be aware of that. So what is a business structure? So the business model is how you make money. The business structure is kind of it's the business container. It's the legal and tax framework showing how the business is organized, owned, taxed, and operated. It's pretty internal. So a brand, which we're going to talk about later, is public facing. It's how the world, the public perceives you. The business structure is internal. It's between you and pretty much the government and maybe a client on a legal document. Here's a couple different options. There's a ton out there, tons of options. But as a sole operator, these are the two that are probably going to be most likely. The simplest and the default one is to be a sole proprietor, where you as an individual, so me as Rachel Thompson and my social security number, are a business. We have a business, and then basically when we file taxes, we fill out an extra form. I think the Schedule C is what it's called. And then it's just taxed as a collection there. I will note, not a lawyer nor a tax accountant, but this is kind of general knowledge. And so you can always talk to a lawyer or an accountant to help you set this up. One thing to think about is that, so I am Rachel Thompson, and then a doing business as is it's a way to connect a brand to a person. So for example, I am Rachel Thompson doing business as the Daring Studios. So Daring Studios is my brand. It's the public-facing thing. And then I filed a form with the state that connects me to my business. And then that's just a way to connect all the things on the business side, on the business entity side. Another option is a single member LLC. This provides a little bit different level of protection between the business assets and the personal assets. It does require a little bit more work to do. You have to file with the state. There's different things you have to do to have an LLC. You might get an EIN, which is a business tax number. It's an option. I don't necessarily think you need it, especially if you're starting out, but you can always get it later. And again, this is on the business side, not necessarily the public-facing side, but just so you can kind of think about this thing. So this is business structure. These are the two options that you're likely going to do. All right, so here's some business recommendations. Get a separate bank account. And so basically in your separate bank account, any money you make from the business goes into the bank account. Do regular bookkeeping, and what I mean by that is you're tracking business-related income and expenses. This could be as simple as a spreadsheet with income and then the expenses like workshops, writing tools, software, the things required to run a business, maybe a domain expense or a website expense, things like that. Just keep track of that. check your state requirements. I would go to the state website, Department of Labor usually, and see what it is they require. Maybe filing a DBA, maybe just doing a business registry with the state. Check about general liability insurance. It's not super expensive, but it just adds a little bit of protection. And also, as a business, you'll want to pay estimated taxes. What that means is that on any money you make, that as an employee, our jobs pull taxes out and pay the government basically every paycheck. As a freelancer or a self-employed person, basically you pay estimated taxes every quarter. April, June, September, and then January are the dates. And you estimate them and you pay them to both the federal government and usually the state government. I would check out the IRS website, search self-employed, and you'll find a bunch of information there. And also check out your state website for the state taxes. But just be aware that you will likely want to pay those so that you don't get a big tax bill at the end. And also accounts for business expenses and things like that. Something to think about. All right. I'm going to offer a way to approach managing cash flow with probably what will be variable income. And this is something that I do. So this is a version of what I do. And it's kind of based on a book called Profit First by Mike. I forgot his last name. But you can Google Profit First and find it. So again, you have the business bank account. So I would deposit all revenue. So revenue is any money you make in the business. Selling books, selling writing services, things like that. In a business bank account. And then I do this monthly, but at the end of the month, I'll set aside 10 to 15% for operating expenses. Operating expenses are the expenses required to run the business, website, marketing, tools like that. Taxes, so set aside 20 to 25% for the estimated taxes so that when you pay them, you have a nice cushion there set aside to do it. And then I do 50 to 60% into what I call an owner pay a cushion account. So if in 1 month I make a bunch of money, I put 60% in there. And in the next month I make less money, I still put 60% in there. But then I am building up a cushion so that I pay myself a consistent amount. It helps you even out the cash flow. This is just an option, something I like to share, and a way to kind of balance out the expenses, like to account for operating and taxes, but also to help kind of even out the cash flow of paying yourself. It's just an option I like to offer. All right, so some questions about business model and structure. How does your business make money? Or how do you want it to make money? What is your structure? Sole proprietor, single member LLC, other options. There's a lot. I wouldn't overthink this if you're just starting out. You can be a sole proprietor for a year and then get an LLC, or you can get an LLC now and do that. But sometimes it's easy to just be nimble. And you can always change it later. Again, remember, this is behind the scenes. It might require some work, but it's possible. And what do you need to do to set up your business, to really create it as a container to support your work? And I also think about this is you don't need to make it too robust. If you're just starting out, what is the minimum viable product? What is the minimum viable thing you need to do to set up your business? All right, so let's talk about brand and digital presence. What is a brand? So the business model is how you make money. The business structure is the legal kind of framework behind the scenes. And the brand is how the public perceives you. This is the one it's easy to spend a lot of time doing this, and then that's fine. So a couple things to think about. You might have a pen name. You might use your real name. You might use your company name, or a mixture of those. So my real name is Rachel Thompson. My company name is Daring Studios. I could have a pen name. Let's say Rosie Caldwell. Why not? And then the brand is how are those perceived in the world? And just being aware of that. It positions you in the industry as a writer, as an author, as a business, and within a genre. And by genre, it could mean Rosie Caldwell writes romance novels. Rachel Thompson does this type of work. And Daring Studios is this type of company, like it positions me in the world. And then the genre is, if you think about it, like as a writer, you're like, okay, I write romance, I write sci-fi, whatever it is, you have a genre there. Your business can also have a genre. So it's a little bit of a metaphor transfer, but think about it as like if you're writing a book, you're writing a genre, you have the expectations of the genre, the tropes, things like that impact how you write the book. In a business, you also have some of those same things. So as a solo operator, as a thing like that, you have certain business things you might approach. It's a positioning thing. And also consider the look and feel of your brand. And again, this can be simple. It could just be like your name, your website, maybe a couple colors, some fonts. Maybe you want to go really stylistic if you want to be really into, okay, I'm a romance writer. What are other romance writers? How do they brand themselves? Sci-fi, horror, you might change it up a little bit to match your genre, but it's something to think about. So as you're doing that, as you're kind of establishing your brand, you also want to establish your digital presence. And this is really, we're in a digital world these days. So business name, again, it could be your just your pen name, your real name, or maybe a made-up business name. Your body of work could be past written work. It could be your experience as an author, a writer, things like that. Like you're just establishing and making connections from who you are as an individual entity to who you are as an author identity to who you are as like a business identity, and connecting those things. You probably want to buy a domain and build a website. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. I would maybe recommend setting up an email account. You can connect, like you buy a domain and then you can usually, a lot of the domain purchasing places, you can also set up an email account. So like I'm Rachel@daringstudios.com. Just adds a little bit more of a business container level to it. You don't have to, but you can. And then I would maybe also recommend setting up a newsletter. And we'll talk about that more in a second too. So these are a couple things you want to think about establishing your digital presence and really kind of putting a stake in the ground on the internet and being like, hi, I am a business. Here's the things that you own. Again, ownership is important here because that's, platforms change, algorithms change. And if you like buy a domain, build a website, have an email account that's yours, and a newsletter, those are things you own and you can take with you. So that can be really powerful. So building a website, I would recommend, and this is something you can do that can be very simple. You have ownership over your work, and you have agency over changing it and shifting it, things like that. You can position yourself as an author, as a writer, as a within a genre, things like that. And you give a place for, like, if I find a writer, I definitely have done this. There's readers, I'm like, oh, what books do they have coming out? I'll go to their website and look. Join their newsletter. They'll send me snippets. I'm like, oh, I will buy this book when it comes out. I have definitely an author that anytime she's like, I have a new book coming out. I'm like, pre-order. You want that. You want to have ownership over that and be able to position yourself as that. I would recommend, if you're, this could be overwhelming, and there's a lot of options for websites, but start light and keep it simple. Card.co, it's $20 a year. You can build a single page website. There's templates and things like that. That's one option that I've used before that's really powerful. There's a couple like author specific ones out there that are also pretty affordable. But I think definitely buy a domain, single page website, keep it simple, but I think it's really important to have. All right, starting a newsletter. Again, this is about ownership and direct access to readers. So this is really thinking about going back to the hat of the CEO of broadcast marketing. So once readers find you, then you want to keep access to them so that as you're writing more books, you can just say, hey, I wrote another book. Would you like to buy it? Would you like to share it with your friends? One way to do this is on the website you just set up. You can set up a form to capture emails there. And then if you use something like Kit, which is they have a free version there, otherwise it's paid. But you can set up a welcome email automation, which is what basically someone signs up, you say, hey, thank you for joining my newsletter. Here's a snippet of my upcoming book, or here's a free little deleted scene or something. Some sort of thing that acknowledges them and says thank you and gives them a little bonus thing. You also might think about email cadence and content, and I would really keep this light. There's a lot of content creation out there, which is like email, weekly, email, whatever. I'm like, as an author and a writer, your cadence is a little bit different because your business model is different, because books take longer to write. Maybe quarterly, maybe monthly, just with announcements and snippets saying, hey, I wrote a little snippet for you. I have a book coming up. This is what I'm working on. My book's going to be on pre-order this time. Order it. And then Kit is an option, kit.com. It's a newsletter service that you can do. There is a free option there, but it's something so you can build a form there. It'll capture it, and it's a way to email people and things like that. You could just have people submit a form and just do a spreadsheet, and then you could just email them directly from email. You don't have to do a newsletter service. But I do think it is important to have some sort of way to connect with the readers. All right, so let's talk about marketing and outreach. So we just talked about kind of building the digital presence. And that's like the static things so that you're findable. So that if I hear about you, I'm like, oh, I'm going to check out their website, see if they're in the genre I like, see if I want to work with them, see if I'm interested in following up. Marketing and outreach is like really doing broadcast work and setting yourself to be discovered. So things to consider. Is it a hobby? If you're just writing books, you might not need to do as much marketing and outreach. But if you're treating it as a business where you're writing and selling books, looking to make money, then you probably will need to do marketing outreach. Even if you have a publisher, I think these days you have to do your own marketing. So marketing is the work of making your work or your book findable and desirable to readers who can then purchase it. Saying out there, I wrote this book, here's what this book is, here's why you want it, here's how you can buy it. Outreach is maybe building a network of people to help amplify your work, other authors, publishers, writing conferences, building partnerships and visibility in the ecosystem of authors and writers and readers. So there's a bit of overlap, but like marketing is a little bit more kind of direct to the sales part, and outreach is playing the long game. It's building an ecosystem so that you can amplify other authors and they can amplify your work. Maybe go on podcasts and things like that to sell your book when the book is published. So those are kind of just different things to think about. So some strategies. Where is your reader? You want to go there. There's a lot, especially with social media these days. I am not on social media hardly at all. That's not where I go. That's never really been where I went to find books as a reader. So just a note there. But where are your readers? Where are your readers finding new books? Libraries, bookstores, book lists, book groups. I don't know. There's tons of stuff out here for that. But you want to be discerning. Because you have limited capacity, you have limited time and money and attention and energy, you can't do it all. You can't be on all the platforms, and you probably don't want to be. So just think about that. We'll talk about two different things. So discovery engines is where you might find new readers. So search on Google or Kindle or Goodreads or, where do people search for new books? Bookstores, book fairs, guesting, maybe guest writing, guest posting, guest bundles, guest anthologies, sharing a snippet on someone else's newsletter. Communities, I know there's tons of communities of where people are sharing their work. And then relational marketing, again, where you connect with other authors that are in similar genres, so that when they write a book, you can share it, and when you write a book, they can share it, things like that. Broadcast platforms are connected with past and current readers. So these are people that are already kind of in your ecosystem. Newsletters are really powerful here. And then I would put social media here. I'd also add a disclaimer about that a lot of social media these days isn't actually reaching the readers. Like they might be following you, but they're not actually seeing your content. If you're interested in learning more about how to market without social media, I would recommend Amelia Herby's Off the Grid podcast. Tons of great resources. And I think it's a really powerful shift that moving away from social media. You might still need to be on it, but I think that's really what you want to be discerning. All right, so how are you sharing your work? How are you sharing your books? How can new readers find you in your books? Who might you connect with to amplify your reach? other authors, other publishers, other communities, things like that. And what might you need to say no to doing? What maybe you don't need to be on the 17,000 social media platforms. Maybe pick one, maybe pick two, and focus on that. And then, because it is nice to be visible in some way, and to be findable. So how might you be findable, and how might you really amplify your work? Just some of the questions to think about. All right. So business decisions. What is the vision for your business? So you're a writer, you're an author. It could just be a hobby. You could just do that. But do you want to put on the CEO hat, and do you want to treat this as a business and make money? How much money? What kind of expenses what kind of time, energy, and finances are you willing to invest in this business? Because you will need to invest upfront some in order to make money later. So I'm going to talk about a couple, if you're putting on the business hat, here's a couple things to think about when you're operating your business. So the main question here is, how might you build your business operations to support your life, your brain, and your bank account? I think we all like those things. The business operations, consider strategy and vision. Do you have clarity? Resources. What do you need to operate, or what do you need to allocate? Support and admin. Do you have the foundations? Do you need to build a website, set up a newsletter, buy a domain, keep it light, bit of a brand? And what is the minimum viable thing you can do, on an ongoing basis? Sending a newsletter every 4 months, things like that. How might you market your work? So it's communications, marketing your work, sharing your books out there. And then delivery, writing and publishing the book. Writing and publishing, you have a book, it's ready to be in front of readers. Marketing, sharing it out there with the world. So all of these things, maybe except for delivery. Delivery is the writer hat. The writing and publishing book is really the writer hat. But the first four really are the business operations. That's what business operations is. It's the work of selling and running the business, so you have that container to do that. All right, a couple of things to think about. Digital presence, build a website. Keep it light. If you're overwhelmed, keep it light. Keep it simple. One page, buy a domain. That's it. Consistent marketing. I would send newsletters, or at least start capturing newsletters, capturing people's emails so that you can email them when your book is published, maybe every couple months. Admin things, bookkeeping, the taxes, maybe setting up the business structure. Remember, the default one is, even if you don't set it up and you start making money, it'll just be a sole proprietor from the tax perspective. But I would just keep track of expenses, and if you start making money, start paying estimated taxes. Invest in skill and craft development so you can write better books. Because as readers, we like reading cool books and good books. And then think about the delivery mechanism. How do you want to publish the book you've written? There's traditional publishing, hybrid publishing, self-publishing, tons of options, but that's one of the things you're going to think about, because that's really the business operations. The biggest amount of work is in the publishing the book. Well, writing the book is quite a lot of work. Publishing the book is a second chunk of work. Marketing the book is a third chunk of work. And then running the business, it's a light business, so it wouldn't be a ton, but it would require some money, time, and resources. Things to think about. All right, so we're going to do a little bit, you are going to do a bit of an inventory and assessment. So think about your business as like a house. You're going to walk through the rooms of your business one by one, like marketing, strategy, comms, business structure, things like that. Make a wish list. What are all the things you're like, oh, I wish I could do this. I wish I could do this. The brand, things like that. And then how might you be 10% more specific with your wish list? I want to self-publish my book. I want to self-publish, and what does that look like? How much are you willing to invest in it? Maybe add a time or money budget. I'm going to publish the book in this year, and I'm going to spend this much money. Break a big project into smaller pieces. Writing the book is a big project. Setting up a business can be a big project. A website can be a big project. How might you break it into smaller pieces, or especially for the website, descale your vision a little bit so that it's light and it can be done more quickly and still be kind of professional and things like that. And connect each item to a desired outcome and purpose. For example, maybe, I should get on TikTok. I should get on Threads. I should get on Blue Sky. I should get on Vine, which isn't even around anymore. What for? Like, how will this project move me towards my vision? How will it help me build a business that supports me and my writing career? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but just think about that as you're thinking about through this wish list. And then maybe pick a couple, pick one or two to might help you set up your business structure, build a website, create some of the business container that supports your work as an author and a writer. All right, so kind of the big question here is, what decisions do you need to make to build a strategic and supportive freelance writing business? We talked about a lot of different things. On the business side, using the CEO hat, what decisions do you need to make? Is this a hobby? Is this a business? What's my business structure? What's my brand? What website do I want to use? Things like that. All right. Thank you so much. Again, I am Rachel Thompson. If you have questions or you want to reach out, want to work with me, you can reach me at rachel@daringstudios.com. Thank you so much.